Fake natties are back, and I've just finished watching a Greg Doucette video of the guy Prosper Fitness, who you may have seen on Instagram, spectacularly failing blood work and proving that he is in fact on fucking nitro fuel after having the gall to claim that he's a lifetime natural. And there's quite a few guys kicking about just now, like your Hussein Farhats and the young boy Julian, who's actually blew away everything that Hussein's done in terms of building an absolutely mind-blowing physique in a short amount of time, whilst he's training being dog shit, I might add. And I'm not necessarily saying those guys are definitely taking stuff, but I certainly have my doubts. And just in general, there's definitely been a renaissance of the guys coming out the woodwork claiming to be natural phenoms whilst looking just out of their mind. They were laying low for a while because people were becoming a lot more educated in how to spot fake natties, and it was harder for them to actually convince people. But definitely this year they seem to have grew their balls back from being shriveled little peanuts from all the gear. They're now just putting themselves out there as these natural phenoms. So I'm going to give you a checklist of sorts on how to identify if somebody is using performance enhancing drugs, whether they're lying about it or whether they're just not stating if they are or not. And this isn't me being a hater, because I do think it is really important that you educate yourself on this topic, especially in today's world with Instagram and everything, and you just don't know who's telling the truth and what's realistic for you and what's not, because there is absolutely nothing worse than setting unreal expectations for yourself and then getting disheartened because you're not making as much progress as your favourite natural guys on Instagram. They're about as natural as Katie Price's tits.
It's a bit of a weird analogy.
And if there is something worse than that, is when I've had clients come to me upset because they were expecting to be able to do a transformation like their favourite influencer that they had seen, and the influencer is just juiced up to the tits and just claiming natural, and they can't tell either way, and I've got to pick up the pieces off it. I'm gonna pick up the pieces, whoever's fucking jaw that is. And whilst I'm on an Undertaker-esque streak for getting interrupted every single week when I try and record, please make sure to subscribe and like the video at the end if you like it and found it useful, and obviously come back and watch some more videos if you also want to get more useful videos. So the first way that we can take an educated guess if somebody is taking gear is quite simply the eye test. Just simply look at them, and if they are just so ridiculously big and ridiculously strong, then there's every chance that they had help getting there. You can't really put any quantifiable figures on it, like for example, oh, he's like over 100 kilos at single digit body fat, so that means he probably takes steroids. You can't quite do that because we will have outliers to that, and I'll come to that in a second. And likewise, not every single person who is on steroids is going to be necessarily that big or that lean. It's probably slightly easier to identify with strength, and I would probably say that there's not any natural guys squatting or deadlifting like 400 kilos or benching 300, but again, there's probably a lot of guys that are kind of close to that could be either way. And there'll be a lot of people that fall into the category of that is achievable natural, but did they do it natural? And in terms of just taking things at face value, that doesn't necessarily count for the 1 in a million type people that can just be the phenoms, the outliers, the guys that are just the super strong, the super jacked. And the only way to really identify if there's a good chance somebody's taking steroids or not is the sort of context of everything. And I would say the biggest thing that you can use to tell is someone's rate of progress. So pretty simple. If you see somebody just like improving and building slabs of muscle and adding so much weight on the bar at super speed, then there's a good chance that they're doing that with assistance. And likewise as well, if that progress is just like never ending, and as we know, when you train you do have periods where your strength will drop and your physique's maybe not as good, and then other periods where everything's just on and you go through just purple patches. Drug guys don't really have that. They will just have improvement after improvement after improvement. However, somebody can take drugs and still have fluctuations in their performance and the results, but what the drug guys will have like higher peaks and troughs, if that makes sense. So when you're natural and you lift, when you kind of go through a period where you're a little bit weaker or whatever, you don't have like a massive drop off because you've not kind of added in or taken away anything exogenously. But the drug guys, when they are going on and off cycle, they will experience a lot higher highs but a lot lower lows compared to where their highs were. So if you see somebody like being able to like bench 200 kilos one week and then the next week they're struggling with 150.
Oh no! What happened?
then there's a good chance that they've just come off cycle. And that's what makes me skeptical with guys like Hussein and Julian. And if like they had been training and eating properly for like 10, 11, 12 years and got those results, then yeah, I would be like, that is probably believable for an outlier. But the fact they've done it within 2 years is very, very sus. And it's not just that progress going from 0 to 100, it's also where that sort of fits within your training history. So when you train, you will have diminished returns. Like in the earlier days of your training, you will improve more and your rate of gains will slow down over time, and that's just natural. However, a sign that somebody is taking drugs is when their progress is like this and it's going steady, and then all of a sudden after having trained for a good few years, it just like shoots up and they just take this big jolt of improvement. And again, that isn't physiologically possible. And if it is happening, then there's every chance that they've went to the dark side. Now, another thing that I look at a lot when I'm determining if somebody's natural or not is the actual quality of what they're doing, like their training and diet. Like I said before, there are people that fall into this could be achieved naturally, but did they do it naturally? And the only way that you're going to have a good chance of determining that is by actually looking at what they've done to achieve the results. And whether you're looking at the guys at the elite top level or looking at guys who are just kind of like pretty good, because please believe me, by the way, there's a lot of people you see in gyms that just look like they're kind of strong and in good shape, but are taking stuff. So please don't think it's only just the elite of the elite guys that are on these drugs. If the quality of someone's training and eating doesn't match the results, then yeah, again, could have the just genetics that just allows them to kind of circumvent that. Like if someone's doing absolute dog shit training and got a piss poor diet, but are still somehow managing to walk about like the Hulk. If you see people training like pussies, yet they're still adding slabs of muscle and umpteen plates on the bar every week. And I suppose the technical quality of their all-round training, their programming, their form, their intensity, that has got to match up with what the end product is. And likewise, if you're seeing somebody who's just training like a fucking madman, never getting tired and just continuing to progress, then there's every chance that they've got something that's helping them have that extra little bit quick recovery. I used far too many words there. Now, in terms of the look of them, because this is obviously the big one and the big thing that people jump on most of the time, is do they look like they take steroids? And there is a few kind of outward signs that you can point to. From a physique point of view, you'll often see drug guys with big massive cap delts. That's probably the main telltale sign. Also, traps are another one that will just like blow up, and that's because of the androgen receptors that are in those muscles. Perhaps guys that are able to stay ridiculously lean year round and never be short of energy and still be able to grow muscle. That's going to be really hard to do naturally, but becomes a lot easier when you are getting that extra little booster. And this is going to be hard to explain, but there is just like a certain look that drug guys have, just in terms of just like the grainy skin that they've got, and they're just like pigmentation and just the colour that their skin goes. It can be quite blotchy, they can be riddled with acne, and again, not every single person will suffer from those side effects. They can have
Is she a retard?
They can have gynecomastia, basically bitch tits, where you will see like puffy inflamed nipples just because of the extra estrogen that they've got. And another sign is actually if they start rapidly losing their hair. So if you see somebody becoming swole whilst getting increasingly more baldy, then the two things could be married up. Not every single person will suffer from every single side effect, and it's going to be dependent on the drugs you're on, the dosages you're on, and just how you respond to things. And there will be people that have literally zero side effects, but again, these are kind of like the walking red flags that you can kind of see in people and point to. And lastly, there are definitely some, I suppose, personable and sort of social indicators of somebody who's using performance enhancing drugs. And probably the biggest one is the people that have something to financially gain by being the absolute best physical specimen that they can be. Whether that be influencers who are vying for attention online, athletes who are trying to win gold medals and £1 million sponsorships and contracts and all the rest of it, actors who are trying to get roles or need to be in shape for a role and earning 10, 20, 30 millions of pounds. When there's big lumps of money involved, there's not really too many things that people wouldn't do. And for a lot of people, it's certainly not taking steroids. And I think actors is probably the best example there, because you'll see a lot of them in films and think to yourself, like, oh, that's like a natural physique, he wouldn't have taken any drugs for that. But when they've only had like 6 months to get in shape for a film and they don't really do any training before, or they've not been training, like they've got the shortcut right there and they're all loaded, they can all like afford to take it, and at the end of the day, why would they not? It's not a sport or anything, it's just what so much of Hollywood does. Not just the obvious ones like The Rocks and the Hemsworth and all those guys that are just out of their actual minds. And socially, what I've often found is that when you see kind of groups of guys or girls or whatever, and one of them's taken, tends to be multiple or all of them taken. And it's quite harsh to maybe say guilt by association, but you just need to think of other things, and it's very rarely do you have like somebody who's teetotal being pals or being surrounded with like total mad ecce party heads. And taking drugs in all forms tends to be something that just, I don't know, it's maybe a bit of a stretch to call it a community thing, but a lot of people who use will just, you know, gravitate towards one another, or, you know, if there's a group of pals that start training and one of them takes it, then it's kind of a gateway for everybody else to jump on it. This is probably even less of an absolute. However, what you'll probably find is that people who are quite comfortable taking recreational drugs, Charlie, your Kit, if they've not got a problem taking the drugs that do damage to them, they're probably not going to have a problem taking the drugs that actually help them. So those are just a few wee pointers, and hopefully you found this useful. And above all else, as much as I'm saying to obviously just be aware of these things, and it can be a pain in the arse when you're looking at just drug guys who are just fast tracking and speeding up their progress, and you thinking, oh fuck, I wish I had that and I probably deserve that because, you know, I'm doing it all naturally. Don't let it get you down, and just please keep working like fuck, because at the end of the day, what other people does, it's not going to have any outlasting effect on you. And again, I'm not necessarily saying that you'll be able to catch every single drug guy. You'll definitely be able to catch some of them, and you'll definitely be able to outlast most of them. And believe me, seeing, you know, 10 years time, all the guys that are just absolutely hammering themselves with gear just now, they're not still going to be training. And don't use it as an excuse to feel sorry for yourself and pussy out, and if anything, use it as your motivation to work 10 times fucking harder. Blips are going to be in the screen if you want to go and watch any more videos, and don't forget you have my free gain splaining guide down below if you want some help with your training, and if you want some other help with your training, you have got my coaching inquiry form down there too. So you can give that a fill out, or you can drop me a message on the old Instagram. Pre-training jobby time, and I'll catch you soon.